Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Yeah.
I was actually just speaking to someone who was kidnapped by a Palestinian terror group.
Wow.
A couple of years back.
Wow.
In the West Bank.
Oh, okay.
Didn't mean to.
No,
that was today. It wasn't me.
No, but that would have been quite an interview. I mean, like I said, I remember taking some torture testimonies from some people who. Yeah. I mean, literally, the guy's first response was, "I'm really shocked to be alive because I was expected to die horribly." And he said, after 40 days, God answered my prayers. He was upside down in a crucifix position, and I got let out. And I said, I didn't really know what to do. So he actually was in a shock. He said, I didn't expect to be alive here.
Can I ask? Yeah, I was going to say it was Syria or Slav, but it's not Syria.
No, it was Syria. The hood's rough, but not that rough, right?
Chalvi, yeah.
Can I ask the obvious question? Was it Daesh that had kidnapped him? Was it?
No, it was Nizam. It was Bashar. It was
I mean, Shia militia.
No, not Shia militia. It was the regime. So basically, the guy got stopped going in because he lived in Rifat Talib, which is like the outside of the suburbs, like the countryside surrounding Idlib. And he got stopped going into Aleppo because most of the professionals work in Aleppo. I think the kid was like entry level. I say kid. The young man was he just finished his studies and he got an entry level engineering job or something. So they stopped him and said, "What's your name?" He doesn't compute. Do you support the revolution? And he's like, "What's that got to do with anything?" And then he got pushed around a few places, tortured a little bit, a lot, and abused. And obviously the physical scars were on his body and his hands and fingers. And then after 40 days, he got released. And he was like, well, obviously, and everyone's kind of having a party. So I waited for everyone for the congratulations. Obviously, the father was beaming in the corner, and all of his mates were like, "Hey!" And then I got a little bit of time with him, and eventually it was just me, his dad, and some of the guys who were showing me around, and that was really cool. I mean, I put it up on my blog, but it was humbling. It's humbling to have that experience because it makes you think how lucky you are. It made me think how lucky I was not to go through that, really.
This is one of the things, and sorry to make about Israel Palestine again, but this is one of the things that really this is one of the things that we find so hard to understand because we look at the horrors that are being raged across the border. I mean, the things that are happening in Sham in Syria are horrendous, and we look at the outcry against Israel, and we look at the outcry.
Are you thinking proportionality question?
Because you look at the proportionality of just how many innocents and just so many people tragically slaughtered in Syria. Yet you don't have solidarity campaigns in every single university.
Well, this is actually. I feel you here, and I do try to. I don't just extend it to Syria. Yeah. I try and tell my kind of Muslim brothers and sisters that it's not just shall we say problems afflicting the Ummah. I mean, although it's natural for people to kind of focus on things affecting their community and stuff. Like look at, I was telling my wife the other day, that like Tibet, like 1 million people have died, shall we say, since the Chinese occupation. That's what they think. 100,000 compared to 100,000, 800,000 they think in Rwanda, and it
doesn't have the coverage, does it?
It's 1 million, and they, like in the West Bank, the Chinese are importing. It's like a settler colonial project. They would say, like they're importing Han Chinese to kind of displace the kind of ethnic Tibetans.
Well, they've been doing that with the Muslims there as well.
Yeah,
China
it was originally like a few percent kind of Chinese, and now it's I think 40-50% Han, and it's sort of legal to fly the Tibetan flag. You get tortured for it, and they say if Tibet was considered its own country, it would be in one of the lowest 10 in terms of civil rights, like Syria, Saudi, like China, like these places, right? But to get to my main point, I think we have to kind of look at it when we're looking at Israel or Syria and all these things. I try to put it all in the terms of a bigger picture, like one coherent picture, which is that if we look at the Middle East, there is a Cold War raging between basically the kind of the Sunni power that is Saudi Arabia, and I put quote marks because really not, but and then Iran, and they are both kind of exploiting kind of ethnic or religious, primarily of course religious divisions within the region to further this kind of really awful kind of foreign policy, right? At each other's and everybody else's expense, and I think Israel is part of this. It relates to this because Israel, as I see it, has solidly sided kind of with the Saudis and has supported some of their more vicious projects in the kind of the region, either kind of explicitly or implicitly. And of course the West is to blame for this. Like we side with essentially Saudi Arabia for the purpose of just getting favours from them. As far as I see it,
this is one of the things that when you're involved, so as I mentioned before, I'm a Zionist. When you're a Zionist and you speak to people, the thing you hear from the Ummah time and time again is it's the Jews. So Israel siding with the Saudis. Israel's actually Daesh. It's not Jews. There's a guy called Simon Elliott, who's actually a Mossad Jew who tricks some Muslims. Behind every Gaddafi Jew.
I think it's because people like simplistic answers, and I think
you could conspiratorial tendency.
You can talk about the Israelis.
I'm going to say something which is going to get me shocked because I am for interfaith. But if you look at the Muslim world, the Muslim world today is a mess. And it's not
agreed. Sorry.
It's like there's war, and I'm not talking all Islam, particularly the Arab world.
Yeah.
There's wars raging in so many places, whether it's Yemen, Syria, Iraq, Israel, Palestine. There are so many conflicts,
but a lot of
the
people
biggest
say,
losers. So when the spotlight is cast onto Israel as just being the biggest pariah state that's either pulling the puppet strings of Saud or in bed with the Sauds or it's in bed with the Americans, when they look at Israel and they throw billions of dollars every year to the Palestinians, what they do is they turn a blind eye to so much suffering. And the real losers aren't actually Israel. Israel's going to survive. Israel's like a very, thank God, alhamdulillah, Israel is a powerful enough state now to survive. The real losers in this are not the Israelis, it's not the Palestinians, it's all the other states. I mean, you look at somewhere like Eritrea, you have to walk 2 miles to get some water from a mud hole, yet Eritreans get a fraction of the aid that the Palestinians get, yet they're both Muslim, and it's because the spotlight is cast on Palestinians at the expense, whether it's conflict, whether it's aid. There's this disproportionate interest.
I don't think it's our interest on one second. I don't think it's our interest in Israeli-Palestine which is to blame necessarily. It's just maybe increasing our interest in other things at the same time, because of course we should really care about every conflict as much as is possible, as much empathy as is possible to hold in the human heart, kind of thing. But people like simplistic answers. But I think people are right to talk about perhaps the Israeli government's complicity in terms of siding with the Saudis and so on. But we should also talk about what the Saudis themselves are responsible for, of course. But Muslims say maybe some Muslims, I'm just speaking from the gut here, don't like to talk about that as much because maybe it would put a spotlight on problems, more general issues with ultra-conservative Islam, right? But I think you could supply that to any community. Any conservative from a particular religious community might be more hesitant to focus on the kind of ultra-conservative kind of extremism within their own community because it makes them more uncomfortable. I don't know.
Well, you mean like me and this brother here?